Hi YouTube, thanks again for watching Wtf Rc Cars. So, we've got a few more mods to the carbon fibre TT02 build that I've done. Basically, what I'm going to try and do this time is upgrade the steering parts to aluminium, and then I've got the low friction sort of ball joints for the steering. I'm just trying to free up this steering a little bit and see if there's any way we can just shore it up a little bit, make it a little bit better. So we're going with the Tamiya part, OP1559, that's these little guys, and the Wtf Racing part is the TT02042BU, which is just the bearing steering assembly. So let's bring in for a close-up look and see how we go about swapping these. Right, so first thing we're going to do is drop all this suspension off, and I think we can get away with using the 2mm driver on here. So we'll quickly get these undone. Once they're out of the way, let's see if I can get into this one. Should be able to use the ball driver. Nice MIP bit for this one. Does make it easier for getting into these at weird angles. So now we're going to have to back both these out. I'm not entirely sure how this is going to work with the aluminium chassis conversion, but let's get the Wtf Racing parts open. So basically it's going to sit on that way, and we have a bunch of small screws. So some of these we're not going to need to use. So basically we're going to be fitting this, and we're going to put two of these little shim spacers underneath, so they go in front bottom. Then we're going to line that up. I think it should be these two. So we're just going to line these two up. These should tighten down nicely. Because these are on bearings, we're not going to get any sort of weird binding that we had before, but they feel really nice and smooth. And because this is the Wtf Racing adjustable turnbuckles, these should, or so I believe, screw directly into these. So it should be a nice direct fit for all these parts. And straight away I can tell that feels a lot better. So now we just need to screw this last ball joint in. Yeah, that does feel a lot better. There's very little play in them, and it should be a lot freer on a steering than the plastic parts were. They did tend to bind a little bit, these, which not really something I've noticed on the other parts, but then again I've not really used them on the carbon chassis, so. But there does feel a whole lot less play in these than in the cheaper non-Wtf Racing alloy steerer that I fitted on the other car. So moving on, we need to fit our lower friction little sort of ball assemblies, if you like. So I'm just going to pop that out, and I believe on these we should, famous last words, but should just be able to spin them and either pop them all the way through the bottom or pop them out the top. It looks like it's nice and easy to pop it out the bottom. And then to fit these, you can either go from top or bottom and just get them into place, pop them through, and then drop them back over. I'm just wondering if this is going to take a bit more play out the steering as well once we get all four of these in. Yeah, they feel quite nice. So then it's just a case of doing the same on the reverse. So just drop these out. Make sure you've got your little spacer on the top of that one. There we go. And then all you've got to make sure on these is that when you're putting it back into place, you've got to make sure your drive shaft's not popped out. And it's easier if you line these up with the opening at the top, because then you can squeeze it back into position. And if you carefully line it up, then you should be able to screw it back into position. And I don't think this is necessarily something you have to do, but there's definitely less play in these metal ones than there is in the sort of stock Tamiya plastic ones. So take that off, you've got your little washer, and then just make sure this little end cap, if that falls off, they go facing upwards. So you should just be able to pop that out, and we get a new one. And you pop the metal one back in, and just make sure your drive shaft hasn't come out of place. So if it has, you just have to wiggle it around till it goes back in. And then when you're screwing this back in, make sure you've got your little sort of spacer on it. And then we're just going to want to tighten it all up. And then just do exactly the same for the other two. Just make sure you've got all four, and that should be done. Right, so for this one we are going to be running the Core RC, so it's the CR712 27 turn brushless brushed can. So I'm going to drop this out, and basically differences between the Tamiya. Now this is a sports tuned, which depending on where you look at the actual stats on this one, a lot of people say it's a 23. The most in-depth information I can find is that it's actually a 27, but we advanced timing, so it gives it the RPM of a 23. But depends where you read. So take that with a pinch of salt. So what I tend to do for my motors, at least, is give them a fighting chance. So I like to put a little bit of oil on the actual bearings or bushings, as the case on this one, just to give it a fighting chance to keep the grit and crap out. So I believe we do need to have the sticker on show for this class. So let's see if we can get the heat shield to go on. But first off, we're going to need to get the lower screw in, which it is nice and easy with this motor mount and this chassis. Then we need to get our top one in, and once you've got the bottom one in, this is really easy to do. And I'd just like to tighten them up and make sure the rotor still turns, so we know that the screws aren't too long. Then for this one, I've got a whole bunch of the Surpass Rc RC pinions in mod 6 or 0.6. So these are just the Surpass Hobby Rc RC branded pinion gears. And because we've got lower RPM on this motor than what we had with the Tamiya, that's the RPM equivalent of basically a 23 turn. So I'm going to try for a 25 pinion on this. So what I like to do is get the pinion lined up, and there's multiple ways you can do this, but I like to get the pinion lined up so there's ever so slight amount of play, and then I know it's not that tight that it's going to bind, and I know it's not that loose that it's going to try and shear off. It is an awful lot easier setting these up with the sort of mod 6 than it is on a 64 pitch pinion. You can also go down the route of sticking a bit of paper in between them and close them up. But I like to do it sort of by feel and by eye. And I also like to spin it round and check for any tight spots. Especially when we're running such a weak powered motor, I like to sort of give it the best chance with the least amount of friction or anything, least amount of resistance. But basically, we just need to connect this up, and I always forget which way round is the positive and negative on the Tamiya gear. But let's just power that up and make sure it's motor-wise the right way round. So they are definitely not the right way around, because when we press forward we go backwards. And I really should have paid more attention when I just ripped the wires out of the other motor, and that would have made it a lot easier to just to see which way around they go. Now let me see, because I may be swapping these motors about on this RC, so I'm going to see if I can tidy these cables up in a way that is going to let me get to them two plugs. Yeah, that should be a bit better. Right, so let's make sure we go forward. Yep, we got forward brake. And we definitely need to disable reverse for this track, so if we power that off and back on, forward and brake. So hopefully this should be competitive in the 27 turn motor class. But let's wrap this one up. So there we have it, the TT02 with upgraded suspension now, upgraded steering. So actual mods we've got on this, we have the Racing shocks, we've got the Tamiya high speed gear kit, we've got the Racing drive shaft and output cups. We've got the Racing output cups for both diffs. Also the Racing drive shafts, front and rear, sprung steel ones, CVDs. We've got the full carbon fibre chassis conversion kit. And the Racing steering setup and tie bars. We've got the 9i mod steering servo. And as you can see, the steering is absolutely like lightning on this one. And that's just running the kit ESC that it comes with, which is basically a 1060. So because we've got the carbon fibre chassis kit, it actually comes with the sort of the posts that hold the suspension arms on. So the front, inside and the rear inner is part of the alloy bulkhead that comes with the kit, and I've put the Racing rear one on. Not had to change the front one yet. And I think the only other mods are the 2-degree toe-in rear hubs, and we've got some aluminium hexes on for the actual wheels, just to hold them on nicely. I think I'm running 500,000 diff oil in the rear and 1 million in the front. And apparently I've got a load of carpet from Mansfield stuck all over the RC, which I need to get off. Radio gear wise, we're using the FlySky Noble Pro, as I do with most or all of my race cars. And receiver wise, just the FGR4S, the tiny one with without the antenna. We just use the 3M grip tape to stick them down. And it does make it really quick for swapping receivers if I need to. But thanks again for watching WTF RC Cars. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, share to friends and family, and catch you guys again in the next one.